quick. I gotta do this thing. Okay, there we go. There we go. Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt. This is session 11 of Mecha Hack Paladins. And I think I need to move some overlay stuff around. Just a couple here, actually. It's not too bad. I need to switch Neon, Rain, and Vogue. Okay, cool. So while I do that, we can talk a little bit about who our characters are in our penultimate episode here as we prepare to say goodbye to these characters for at least the present. Let's learn about them. So what I would like is for each of us, each of you players, is I want you to talk about where the characters started out and where they are now at the end of the campaign. Have there been any changes in this character? What kinds of things have they experienced? Have they gone in a direction that you anticipated or not? And we'll go ahead and start clockwise here with Paladin Neon, Zasha. JB, go ahead.
Zasha. Oh, this is rough. Zasha started out diehard Neo-Dominion. The idea that the Neo-Dominion, even though they took her parents and held them as political prisoners, the idea that they were like this last bastion in Lodestar Alpha standing against the Aeonic primacy and all of these strange tales coming across. It was something that she bought into so hard that I don't think she ever expected that she would be standing in opposition of them. And we saw in the series that when it came time to decide between her Paladin comrades and her family, that she was not sure which she would choose. And that unsuredness, that unsteadiness made her put herself in the brig, just completely unsure of what's going on and how she would react. She didn't want to risk hurting someone, at least not one of her companions. But I think that the one thing that's kind of stood out to me the most when I'm looking at this tally on my sheet is just how many people she's killed in like 2 weeks. We're over 60 total people. And the idea that from the very first one to right now, she's always felt burdened by it and shamed by it because her parents kind of spent their lives developing this Geist system, hoping to keep people alive and keep people connected to technology and machinery. And she's become this kind of bleeding edge weapon. I think that it's stripping away layer by layer who she was and is leaving less and less of this soft exterior. And at this point, she's kind of battle hardened into this person I don't think that she would recognize when we first started the series, laughing over cups of noodles and taking naps and playing with her hair. Now it's like, you know, if she buzz cut it, she wouldn't care because it would be more effective.
Awesome. Next up, Paladin Raptor. Mora, go ahead, Barker.
Hey, I think I'm super zoomed. So
yeah,
I'm going to do this thing where I'm like, hold on. What do you think?
Hey, here, I'll zoom you out
no,
a little bit.
I got it. Are you doing it too?
No, I'm not going to. If you're going to do it, I won't do it.
Yeah. Okay, there's a little bit. Little more. How's that?
There, that seems good.
Right? Okay. We'll see how that treats us. Paladin Raptor, Mora, is an interesting character who began this campaign as an untested commander, expected to turn these green, fresh recruits, not really recruits, but troops into an elite squad of mecha pilots. And he came in really brash and kind of cigar smoking, gritted teeth type of anime character. And very quickly he realized that leadership is more about loss than expectations. And as Director Saxifrage, as he knew her, perished, dissipated in the collapse of the initial base that we were at. Mora's round character moments have really revolved around learning that the crew is as important as the leader, and that everybody in a crew is a leader. And especially with the things that Mora learned about himself, that then maybe he's not who he thought he was. Maybe his memories aren't his. Maybe he's one of these clones of unknown quantities. He begins to realize, I think, that it's less about who we are as people and more about what we stand for. And I think that's where he's going to finish off this campaign.
Killer. All right, next up, Paladin Vogue, Maddie Jai. Aaron, go ahead.
Well, Paladin Vogue began this campaign playing on a desktop computer and ended it using a handheld camera on an iPhone. But that's more of a meta issue. The character of Paladin Vogue, Maddie Jai, it's a lot of like background stuff that's happening with Maddie Jai that hasn't necessarily come to the fore. Maybe a couple of things. He is the son of privilege, of a family that is very invested in the sort of military industrial complex of this world, and seems to wield great privilege to a scary degree. It's not really something that we've encountered in the forefront, but I think that's kind of how that family operates in general. He didn't really get a chance to enjoy that privilege, though, because at a very young age, around 10 or 7, he was whisked off into this training for this Paladin program, following the steps of his brother Lucas. And Lucas was a hero to him, and Lucas was somebody he cared for a lot and looked after him. And then Lucas died, and ever since then he became a very rebellious person, rebelling against the Paladin program and everything it stood for, rebelling against authority and responsibility, and people sort of telling him what to do. He decided to, he never really had the heart to be a warrior or a killer or a war machine, and decided to lead with, doing things beautifully, by, he's an engineer, or, but he's a technician, but he comes at it from a place of design and beauty. And he's constantly tried to find those things in the world, and he's been very uprooted since then, and especially since the attack on the station. And now he is, through his experiences, he has found a certain joy and a peace and finds power amongst, though he cannot control who his family is and what the destiny is that they've decided to put him on, the path they decided to put him on. He can choose this family, his chosen family of the Paladins he is with, and though he doesn't always get along with them, and he can be a bit abrasive and smarmy at times, it comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of questioning war, and of all the people who have come into conflict with this role as a killing machine, he was the first to sort of experience the synchronicity with his Geist system, and in doing so, it made him take responsibility for the fact that he has this machine, he has this ability, and he's no longer going to just leave it to other people to decide his fate and to take responsibility. He's going to take responsibility for this, and so I think he's he's a little bit unsure. He's in a moment of great transition, and I think that he, depending on how this fight goes, he could either be somebody who really seeks to change the world, or he could be somebody that continues to hide from the world, or he could even leave the world in a worse place than he found it. So this is going to be a defining moment for him to make a choice and get creative.
Awesome. Okay, continuing clockwise, Paladin, formerly Rain, now Paladin Reign, Reign. Tulip Cho, go ahead, Matt.
I play Tulip Cho, originally still the youngest of the Paladins. Tulip started off from like, at least what she understood, simple beginnings, living a kind of regimented and very specific life in a place called the Subterrane, an underground organization that eventually became associated with the Terrans. And as a child, there was a lot of fighting that went on the surface, and one time it broke through, completely wrecking several blocks of the Subterrane and killing her best friend. But the hero, the knight in shining armor that came through the crack in the sky and dispatched the insurgents that had broken through, was a Neo-Dominion knight. After that, she found herself rattled by the experience, and ongoingly questioned whether or not they were really doing anything down here. Of course, this was egged on by another important character to her arc, Nan, also named Tulip Cho, her grandmother, who in the Subterrane, she remembered having a tank house, literally a tank that had been retrofitted into a house. And the opportunity presented itself when the Neo-Dominion and the Subterrane were doing business. She snuck aboard a ship, and when she was brought into the program, was accepted into it, and found her way into the Paladin program just due to her natural talents. At least that's what she thought. Her arc within the group of the Paladins has been an interesting one. She started off very like trigger happy, rosy cheeked, smiling, naive about war, eager to drop as many micro missiles on whoever was the enemy, but in a fun way. She was innocent to it, you know, like she thought it was a video game almost, and took delight. But that changed quickly. That changed basically when Sassafrage caught the bullet in our early sessions. Beyond that, she made great friendships, including a very important one with Maddie Jai, and a very sort of adversarial one with Mora. And as the story went on, she found herself very interwoven between the two characters, always looking up to the commander and reflecting on everything that was happening, and always finding comfort in Maddie Jai. It wasn't until I'm glad Aaron went before, because it wasn't until Maddie Jai tapped into the dark side of the Geist system, if only for a moment, or at least from the outside looking in, we could see the dark side. That changed Tulip. She started training every day. She started replaying that battle simulation over and over and over again, with a strong intention to never let something like that happen again, to save everybody, driving herself to exhaustion. When we hit this apex of our story, and she found out the myriad of truths, or maybe truths, about her past and a mixture of confusion and betrayal regarding Nan. She just pushed on. She followed through. She followed her team, and as usual, chose them because, like Maddie, she was searching for family when she felt like she had none in the subterrane when she joined the Neo Dominion, and she found it in the Paladins. And then she found it even further when she rediscovered her long lost grandmother's work, the Okami. So of course she will push forward for family, but we've learned last session, even though I was a little bit of a scrambled egg brain about it, that this pressure, this push, combined with everything that's been flowing into her brain, all the information that she just learned, has snapped something. And we begin our play with Tulip Cho in the throes of wanting to save everyone, triggered by an attack on the Okami, Nan's heritage, her heritage. And that's it. And she is stronger, tougher, but she still cries a bit, makes noodles for everybody, and tries to show up as a friend. And she's trying to do that now. She's just lost herself in it.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And finally, formerly known as Regael, Paladin 3's the rightful heir of House Bastion, Pax. John, go ahead.
So yeah, as Matt said, Pax at the beginning of this was like almost literally a completely different person who went by a completely different identity. And I think the core to what I've kind of come to learn about his character is I feel like on the outside, he's a very logical, rational person who likes to be cautious and absorb as much information before he acts. But on the inside, he is an individual who is driven by ideology, and he tends to latch on to an ideology that propels him forward. And it's whatever he's almost like a zealot, where it's whatever needs to be done for the achievement of that ideology is what he's willing to do. And at the start of the story, what was driving him was revenge, and it led him to become like almost like a scientific test subject in order to get as close to what he thought would be his enemies, which even then, like his youth kind of shows in as, although he knew like the faction in which destroyed his parents, he didn't actually know exactly who it was or how he was going to bring about the ultimate vengeance that he wanted. He was just kind of moving in that direction. But as it was revealed to him that it was actually his father that created this like war machine that he was a part of, and which went against the entire creed that he believed his family stood for, of peace and for people and prosperity and all that jazz, his ideology kind of fell apart. So he couldn't latch on to the idea of vengeance because it was kind of his father's fault for what ended up happening. And he couldn't latch on to what he was raised to believe because what he believed his father had already betrayed. So in essence, his whole family had betrayed its own creed, its own people, and he kind of had to forge a new creed, a new ideology on his own, instead of latching on to something somebody else put in front of him, which now he's kind of in this mindset of taking what his family originally thought of being for the people and fighting for what would serve the betterment of the galaxy, and he's just kind of marching forward. And so when he had the opportunity to free his people from being ruled over instead of making decisions themselves. He took that, and currently he is still kind of searching for what is the correct answer with the Paladins. I think he's not necessarily in the same mindset that the Paladins should be used to destroy or push their beliefs on other people, but he's still kind of looking for that answer as to what is the best thing to do. But yeah, I think that's where he's come up to this point.
Great. And just as y'all were talking, and this is like kind of cool to think about where all the characters were at the beginning and then up to now, and realizing that like a big theme of this campaign that has sort of occurred naturally. And I think a big part of this is the fact that everyone is playing young people. We're all, everyone is playing like teenagers. This idea of like leaving behind legacy, or like what you were intended for, and embracing new ideals and new paths that were heretofore unforeseen. And I think that's pretty cool. And also like very in keeping with the mecha genre as well. This like turning away from destiny, turning away from legacy, and forging your own path. So that's pretty cool. And obviously we have these amazing players to thank for that. So I'm going to do just like a quick little, making sure we don't miss any of the beats from last session, and then we're just going to roll right into it here. So last time on Paladins, the Paladins were escaping from this facility, Warwick, wherein they uncovered some secrets about themselves and the Paladins program, Project Halberd, all of that. They obviously, we've talked about this before, but discovered that according to the archives here, that Mora is indeed a clone, and in fact Tulip is as well, both of them using genetic material derived from both Saxifrage and the original Tulip Cho. We also found out that this iteration of the Paladins program is a rogue faction, unaffiliated with the Neo-Dominion and excommunicated, but still operating on their own. The Paladins set the facility to explode, have this volcano basically overtake the facility itself, and escaped in their Paladin suits via the exhaust tunnel through which they initially infiltrated. So you could say they exfiltrated, I guess, is what they ended up doing. Yay! It's entered my vernacular now. I can't get rid of it. It's in there. They were confronted at that point by Calypso, the clone of Saxifrage, who was the original pilot of the Paladins program, along with Paladin Warhawk, Falk, an identical clone to our own Mora. Calypso revealed to the Paladins that she was indeed a rogue element, no longer affiliated with the Neo-Dominion, and that her intentions for the Paladins program was to establish a spearhead against what she perceives as the greatest threat to Lodestar Alpha, that of the Void Maw, these creatures, these ancient creatures that inhabit the Lodestar Alpha system and are becoming more and more of a problem. The confrontation eventually led to a conflict wherein our own Paladin Raptor charged forward and drove Calypso into a sort of a volcanic crevice under the sea. The two of them toppled into that, and the remaining Paladins sought to face off with Warhawk and protect the Okami, as Matt mentioned. And then there was one other thing that I wanted to make sure I mentioned, and now I'm blanking on it. What was it? I can't remember. If I remember, I'll bring it up. But that was where we left it last time, was sort of in media res at the outset of this final confrontation. Oh, I remember what the last thing I was going to say is, and I think, Matt, you mentioned this as well, but that Tulip achieved perfect synchronization with the Geist system at the end of the last session, and so conceivably we'll see what happens there in this session. Mora, you feel yourself falling. Not flying, but falling. You feel gravity upon you. You feel this immense weight bearing down on you. There are klaxons blaring, lights flashing, a dozen warnings on your HUD. As you plummet deeper and deeper into this crevice, you can see nothing around you because your HUD is completely obscured by the immense mass of the Paladin suit that Calypso pilots. I would like you to please make me a mobility or a power test, adding +3 for Calypso's increased HD.
Ties are failure, so fail.
There's a flash of energy as Calypso fires her thrusters, and there's little that you can do against the sheer size of this thing as she rotates you around so that she is now over you, pushing you down. The klaxons continue to blare, and there is a incredible rending of steel, this thunderous crash as you hit ground. She drives the weight of her mecha down onto you, and what you see through the HUD as sparks begin to shower over you is the fist of this mecha driving back. The fist opens up, plates sliding back to reveal a claw. And she drives it into your mech. 8 points of damage. And what we see is essentially Raptor and Calypso on this ledge, this sort of like cliff face that is jutting out of this crevice. And the crevice itself is glowing red hot as magma is rising slowly, gradually out of it. And Calypso is sort of kneeling on Raptor and just driving this like clawed fist again and again into the hull. And with every strike, the cockpit around you, Mora, bends, creaking, sparks, steam emitting from hoses as they're dislodged. Wait. What do you do?
Mora is thrown around the cockpit of the mecha. You even see some of this insanely powerful, strong, translucent material crack at the heads-up display, and the sirens get extremely loud. I believe the glowing blue hedgehog is in this cockpit. I think that unless someone else took Little Max, I don't know what their name is, but so they're kind of hiding underneath the, like, grabbing onto something, finding some sort of alcove where they can stay stable, and Mora, or rather Paladin Raptor, is just taking shot after shot after shot, and they're on the edge of this cliff. And so what Mora is going to try to do in this trapped position is take his mecha's hands, out of which fire the explosive rounds from the submachine gun, which is just embedded in his arms, and he's going to place them downward, like facing the cliff face, the ledge, and then just unleash all the rounds to try to demolish the earth underneath so that they keep falling into the fire.
Very cool. I'll call that a power test.
Okay.
No longer adding the +3 since you're not, you're just literally shooting them down into the ledge.
Yep. It's like what, and they explode and slowly but surely like turn the thing into cheddar cheese. But he fails. So I imagine that Calypso sees the plan and somehow thwarts it.
Yeah, you fire off the first burst of these rounds, and it does indeed weaken this ledge that you're sort of perched upon. It kind of like crumbles a little bit, and Calypso maybe even loses her footing a little bit. So she wheels back again to punch and stops, and instead the claw comes down and pins your arm to the ledge, and this Mecha's face gets super close to your HUD, and you see that like cycloptic eyes sort of swiveling in all directions. And over the comm, it's staticky because of this damage that you've taken, but over the comm, she says, "You see, so easily defeated. I am the heir of our mother's legacy. Not you. Me. You are an imposter. I exceeded her expectations. She wanted you as someone she could keep under her thumb. And now look at you." She wheels back again. Up above, the rest of the Paladins gathered around Warhawk. Let's actually start with Zasha. From what I remember, you fired off this immense beam of energy and then dropped your melted gun. Threes is nearby, but both Rain and Vogue are close to Warhawk. What would you like to do?
Good question. Good question, Matt, as always. Wonderful. This is a 50-50 situation in her mind. The commander is plummeting into this crevice at the ocean floor, struggling with this monolithic, gigantic mecha. And Warhawk is surrounded by one person who's like an enormous laser butterfly and someone who murdered like 65 mechs. And Threes, who is essentially just a spear with a title and name. So I think, splitting the odds, she's going to buzz up the comm and say, "Take care of Warhawk. I've got the commander's back." And she'll turn. She was ordered not to, quote, follow, but she wasn't told to not stay nearby. So she's actually going to go into this crevice and take up position. She's horrific at hiding, but she's going to take up position between where the commander and this enormous mech are and the escape from this enormous crevice. And she is going to ready herself to grapple and drag this bish back into the briny deep if she gets away from our commander. So there's just this kind of situating herself in the opening of this giant crevice with everything warmed up and bristling, ready to just grab hold of the mech if it were to try and surface again.
Great. Yeah, and what you see as you get to that ledge is they've fallen quite a way, so you just see these two figures down there, and you just see the larger one just wailing on the smaller one, and there's like just like a torrent of like bubbles, but also like heat just coming off of them as they're down there fighting. And all of you have each other's like status on your HUD. You all have these little like video gamey like, you know, readouts of what your mechs are doing. And Mora's mech is like yellow, orange with certain parts bright red, like Mech Warrior style, like just not looking good. As Mora's just getting pummeled.
So I'll actually key up directly to the commander and no one else through our comm link and say, "Give me the fucking order, commander!"
After a few tries, it comes through. And just to be clear, from player to player, the order to...
Last time you were like, don't follow us. And then you went down with her into this crevice.
Got it. Okay, got it.
And I was like, that's such a bad idea, but okay. I'll do what you say.
And you see that the target reticle of the team's chosen objective lands directly on Paladin Warhawk.
She turns and looks at Warhawk and is like, come on, guys, hurry the fuck up. And she'll stay in this position for 1 round. And if something doesn't happen in 1 round, she's going down.
Okay, noted. As we move on to the next paladin, the ground rumbling as more tremors take place. They're getting closer and more frequent now. And with each tremor, more cracks and crevices sort of start spiderwebbing outward from this volcano that is rising up off the ocean floor, emitting these superheated bubbles as more heat is escaping. You know it's only a matter of time before that volcano behind you fully erupts and destroys everything nearby. Vogue, Maddie, what's going on? Last time we saw you, you were inside the Geist system with Tulip and Falk. What's happening now?
So the volcano hasn't exploded yet. So the base is still largely intact.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to try some fuckery because it's just that time and I don't have I don't have nearly the muscle that my friends do. So I reach out with my feelings and I try to latch onto the Geist systems of the sleeping copies of our mechs or the other versions of our Paladin chassis that are in the base. And I want to become the puppet master of all of them. So that's the intent. So he begins to reach out and tries to just like, he's basically just gonna just go dick deep into the Geist system at this point, and just like wherever it takes him, as long as he gets in contact with like all of these latent mechs, he's doing it. No matter what crazy shit he sees, he knows that it's full of ghosts and bad memories and technological weirdness, but that's the best he can do for his friends right now. And if things get really bad, he's going to just turn off his invisibility and he's just going to start doing his best to slice and dice.
Okay, so I'll let you do that. I'm going to say that it's probably going to be a couple of tests to make it happen. One to try to access these mecha frames and another to try and control them. They have also, unless I'm mistaken, I believe you guys tampered with them when you were in the base. So I will say that they're not like peak functional, but you can still get them out here and do shit with them if you want.
What's great is it was specifically Aaron that welded their joints shut.
And that's perfect. They'll just come flying out of the base like action figures, just like
yes.
Oh yeah, no, they're just puppets. They're little marionettes for my brain.
Killer. Okay, so why don't you? I guess we'll call this likely a presence test, since you're literally reaching out with your feelings.
Yeah, sure. Okay. That's a success, just barely a success, but a success nonetheless. That the first drip of blood is coming down my nose.
Yep.
As I push myself, maybe my eyes are getting a little bit bloodshot. As I zoom into the grayness of the Geist system.
Yeah, and you fly past buried memories and past traumas, just hurtling through your mind as well as the computer systems of this mecha. In an instant, you relive like a dozen simulator battles during your training. You hear voices, among them Tulips and Saxifrages, and suddenly you find them. You feel these inert, inactive Geist systems inside this volcano. And you know if you go just a little bit further, you might be able to initiate them to launch. That'll be next turn. Let's go to threes really quick. So threes, you are kind of hanging back, as is your style, but you see Zasha, you see Paladin Neon kind of go up to this crevice and position herself almost defensively, sitting there waiting. And you see Rain and Vogue kind of almost having like a zero system like standoff where they're all just kind of like in a circle around each other, like all utilizing the Geist system. What do you want to do on your turn here?
So how far away from me is the Okami?
The Okami is likely far for you.
Okay. Can I get there in 2 movements?
That would be 2 movements, yep.
All right, cool. Then I'm just going to use my full turn to get to the Okami.
Okay.
And try to dock my my chassis there.
Okay, cool. You do so. Go ahead and give me a reactor roll for the double move, but you can absolutely get there.
Okay, this is the wrong guy. Alright, what is the number I'm not supposed to roll?
1 or 2.
Yeah, I rolled that.
Okay. Yeah, that one. I rolled that one. All right, so you push. You just fired off this cannon in the last session. You've been pushing the mecha pretty hard, so you feel the reactor starting to heat up and whine a little bit, but you're still
hold on.
functioning.
But I'm also one with the machine.
Aha! You are one with the machine. That is true. Yep. So go ahead and reduce those APs rather than downgrade your die.
I always forget that I'm one with the machine.
Never forget that you are one with the machine. Okay, great. Threes is now docking with the Okami. So you actually kind of like rocket over Vogue and Rain in their position. And then last up, Tulip. You find yourself inside the Geist system, achieving perfect synchronization for the first time. What does it look like to Tulip? What do we see as we meet Tulip here in the Geist system?
Tulip seems to be lost to the Geist system now, as her consciousness drifts in this milky gray eerie between Rain and Warhawk. But unlike the racing rocket of imagery that would be sending your mind into a bunch of machines on ground level, she's floating slowly, almost like being pushed gently in space. And she's looking for him again. Last we spoke, her and Falk was at a table across from one another, and she's still searching. And though she doesn't will it herself, all of the memories that she has accumulated of Nan start to spiral around her like phantoms, almost like dementors. And it slows her down, and she's suddenly stuck and surrounded by these evils of the mind. And that's where she is in the Geist system. As for just a mild recap, because I have my brain on me now. Before she went into it, or rather while she was activating it, along with her Long Fang prototype beam sword, we saw a barrel that fired a tight beam of energy from the Okami's Starship reactor directly into Paladin Rain. From here on out, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to call that a beam accelerator. And initially, the beam was this sustained thing feeding power into the beam sword, which grew into this erratic plasma kite the size of the big wolf herself. How I picture it now, as Rain, at least the possessed Rain, maneuvers through the Warhawk's orbit and around it like you described. This barrel, the beam accelerator on the Okami, is adjusting on its hardpoint and firing these like concentrated bursts instead of the sustained beam, tracking the Paladin as it moves. So just like, and every time the beam connects, which is not every time, the sword goes from a reasonably large sword to a massive, unruly thing that looks like a angry burst of phosphorus or something. But yeah, on the outside, the pentacorned crown atop Paladin Rain's machine head and those outstretched monarch wing binders look pretty daunting in the light of the Long Fang itself as she like kind of looms over Warhawk like some divine terror. The shadow controlling her smirks. Cutting thrusters, Tulip allows the machine to drift for a moment before she slams the throttle, and those milky Geist eyes, hyperfixated on this transformable fighter jet, snaps that beam sword forward like a whip, and Tulip, emulating like Galadriel, or like she's speaking like this dark elven god, screams, "Face me, broken bird! Submit to higher power!" And the power just kind of fades off, and it's in multiple tones, of course, because metal. And Tulip's shadow seems to have more of a flair for theater than she does. "Embrace who you are, Warhawk, a soldier bred to die." And that's all I got, but I can do my turn.
That's amazing. No, I love it. Yeah, let's get some rolls in there if we're taking on Warhawk.
I would like to, yeah. All right, so pass on my power test, and I pre-rolled damage and reactor. I will tell you after about the reactor, but wait, no, I don't have to. If you fail the reactor, nothing happens, right?
Yeah, you still get to do the thing. You just downgrade the reactor.
Yep. Awesome. So I'm going to choose to downgrade instead of use the boon.
Okay, cool.
Keeping my armor intact. And I will roll to attack. All right. So with the sword, that is a D10, and I rolled 9.
Okay.
I'm using D&D Beyond. I know. I know you're waiting for a follow-up. Can you make 2 attacks? Is this the thing?
Yeah, if you do 2 attacks, you just have to roll your reactor.
Okay, I'll do it again. Let's go all in. Reactor's an 8, thank God. Okay, this one was not a botch. So I will roll for damage again. And I'm using D&D Beyond, but it's slower than when I use real dice. Okay, 9 and 7, so 16 damage.
Damn, okay. Cool.
Yeah, and this like I described, manifests as like the burst from the beam hitting the back and just coming down with an overhand strike and then across like a whip. But really erratically, really spastically, really out of character. She's not a melee fighter.
The Warhawk takes this damage. Bits of armor kind of fly off, and as I described last time, the Warhawk has been rebuilt, and looks less like a bird of prey and more almost like a saurian, like a pterodactyl kind of creature with like fins and stuff sort of coming off of the limbs and this big like crest coming off of the head. Warhawk is faster than he was last time you faced him, but you still dish out this damage using that long fang weapon. But as Warhawk adjusts his thrusters, riding himself under the water here, there's a strange kind of flurry of energy that unfurls from this chassis. And for a second, it seems like Warhawk is splitting into two, and then a third shape appears, and you see that these wings on Warhawk's back have dislodged themselves, and there are two large kind of drone constructs that have dislodged themselves from Warhawk and begin flying around him in a somewhat erratic pattern. One glows red, the other glows blue. The blue one connects to Warhawk with a tight beam of blue energy, and you see the plates of metal affixing themselves. This sort of nanobot formation filling in the gaps in the armor, closing wounds where you can see the circuitry, healing Warhawk, while the red one hones in on the largest threat, which at the moment is Paladin Rain, and firing off with a beam of red energy. So, Rain, what I need from you is a mobility test, please.
I got a 3.
Okay. The beam fires out, but you manage to dodge it. But as you dodge it, Warhawk himself is there, one of these wing blades ready to go. So I need another mobility test from you, please.
What happens if it's right on?
Failure.
Okay, fail.
Whew, and I rolled max damage. That's going to be 10 damage coming at you from this arm blade. So even perfectly synced to the Geist system as you are, Warhawk is a threat, and these two drones that are kind of circling around, if nothing else, are distractions, allowing Warhawk to move freely and attack where and when he chooses. So as this arm blade with its kind of molten metal edge slices through the first layer of armor plating on Rain, Warhawk immediately fires off these thrusters and is dodging again, backing up out of melee range.
Just for some Gundam imagery, can I say that Warhawk sliced the shoulder-mounted shield that she attempted to use it just directly in half?
I love it. Yep, and it does the it looks solid, and then it just goes chink. It just like shears into two clean pieces and falls away.
Nice. I'm gonna reduce it as much as I can with my AP. So
okay, great. That makes sense.
7.
Killer. Okay, back down in the crevice, we see Calypso atop Mora, atop Raptor, again driving this fist down. It almost seems like as she starts like peeling away plates of armor with this claw, that she's trying to get to the cockpit. It seems like she's trying to dig down to get to the heart of the mecha. She's trying to get to you, Mora. And again, as these klaxons go off and you get some kind of static-laced chatter from your comrades, what do you want to do?
The hedgehog in neon blue jettisons out of the mecha in discreet silence in a small little hedgehog spacesuit and begins like with a little turbine up to the top. So really quick, just a question. When we set this place to go off, the volcano to erupt, was that a bomb that we planted or was that initiating a self-destruct mechanism?
So y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the main gist of it was basically allowing the heat from the volcano to rise without being cooled by the facility's coolant systems.
Okay, so we're kind of talking about rising magma right now.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
And this magma that has been forcibly like it's like if you have like stomach flu and you're like, I'm going to puke, like the longer that you put it off and try to stop it, the worse it's going to be. So this magma has been pushed down and repressed for years, and now it's bubbling to the surface once more.
Okay. We're in the midst of kind of like a water bubble fire, like cyclone that's going on. Really, the only thing keeping us still is Calypso pinning me to this rock and just tearing away at the mecha. Pieces of the Raptor's armor come flying off to sink down towards the magma, to either melt as it gets closer or shoot up with the steam vents that are forcing us and everything else upward. I'm going to roll to see whether or not I succeed, and then I'll describe kind of what I do. We get this sense of impending doom. There's no better word than that. Mora begins to tunnel vision. All of a sudden, the sounds of the ripping plates, the severed wires, become dull to his ears. He knows he's had this one plan. Maybe it's time. He keys a few buttons on the display, and all of a sudden, a swirl of photographs, of images, not unlike when he was examining the Voidmon, the Okami, begins swirling back up again on the displays. We see images of the Voidmaw. We see images of Project Halberd. We see images of Saxifrage. And Mora says, "You don't deserve your goals. You don't deserve your objectives. We do." And he strikes in the center of, right at the core, right in the gut of Calypso's mecha, and attempts to hack into the system. He says, "Saxifrage, now!" And all of a sudden, because I succeeded, I'll just describe this. I would like to get, first of all, I would like to get the hollow Saxifrage, some sort of remnant, into the mecha to kind of throw off Calypso, to see herself kind of working against her. But the second thing I want to do is use my reactor charge. The main thing, I want to use my reactor charge to take Calypso's fully charged reactor and charge it up and turn her into this beaming flashlight of energy that can't control her mecha, or goes spinning off, or fires off weapons without realizing it. And I did succeed at that initial systems roll to hack into that system. I can make any other roll if you want, though.
That seems really cool. So you stab in and interface with this massive mecha, and because Calypso is at this point just kind of berserking, just wheeling back and punching you, as you pose little threat to her as she sees it, these kind of armor plates that form this cloak around her mecha are shifting, leaving her the frame exposed, and so you just drive in between these kind of the folds of metal plates, get in there and interface with the mecha, and upload Saxifrage, or like you said, a fragment of Saxifrage, as well as powering up Calypso to the point where her reactor might not be able to handle it. Calypso is wheeling back, and this is the punch that's going to breach your cockpit and let in the ocean and everything else that's happening out here. And it goes, and there's this like just like creak of metal as you're both just motionless, and you see the fist is even like kind of like trembling a little bit in the mecha, and you're not sure what's happening in that cockpit, but this is the hesitation. This is the pause you need. Whatever you do next with your second action has advantage.
I want to grapple, hold on to Calypso, and then you hear the ion turbine spinning up, and then because I haven't taken a move action, we take that move action, and we are diving downward off the cliff downward toward the magma. And I think that's my action. My objective here is to let go at the right time so that the immobile Calypso continues and yet I can stop.
I will allow you to do that on your next turn because you've got a bit to fall here, but you're plummeting and you it really is like Gandalf in the Balrog. Like it's this massive mecha, but you're on this just gigantic mecha and you're just riding it down into the magma. And whatever Calypso is experiencing, whatever is happening with that uploaded fragment of Saxifrage, the comm chatter has died from her and she is not responding or moving.
If it's not too much trouble, the last thing that I would say is, we deserve your objectives. And then those images of the Void Maw again spin up. We can stop them.
Killer. Okay. We cut back to the ocean floor above this crevice. The first thing I need everyone to do is give me either mobility or power, whichever is higher for you. Cool. That's 2. Cool. All right. Awesome. Good job, everybody. There is a intense quake that occurs. All of you feel it in your mecha, and this the crevice into which Raptor and Calypso fell widens and begins kind of lengthening over the horizon. There's a explosion above the water as I'm about to say one of my favorite words, and I don't often get to, so let me give it the reverence it deserves. Some pyroclastic material begins emitting out of this volcano as it begins its eruption. All of you manage to avoid the widening, cracking crevices that are spiderwebbing out from this volcano and maintain your footing. Zasha, you have waited one round, and you see the commander disappear into this crevice. You just see the barest silhouette against the red-hot glow of this magma, but otherwise, it doesn't seem like he's coming back up.
This is a really important question. How far away, near or far, is Zasha from Warhawk?
I would say you're likely near to Warhawk.
All of my dreams are coming true. Okay.
Everything has led to this moment.
Paladin Rain. It actually is the first time. Paladin Rain, you're being cut and hacked by this vicious mecha. And then all of a sudden it kind of shudders and stops. And you see that a hand has clamped down over the top of its head as it reels away from you through the water back towards Zasha. That was a firm success for my power roll to use my grappler arm.
Awesome.
Important question.
What?
Did you leave behind the remotes?
That's up
Yes,
to Matt.
they are separate from Warhawk, so they're left where they are. Yep.
So this arm just kind of disconnects at all of these places and extends out to latch onto this thing's head and reel it back towards Zasha. It takes 1 point of damage, and my reactor is okay. I rolled a 3.
Great.
When it reaches Zasha hits it so hard with this huge refrigerator boxy fist that it makes a cavity in the water that pushes everything out, and then the water slams back in.
Mm-hmm.
She hits it for 26 points of unarmed damage. I am taking 2 points of armor damage myself for this reckless attack.
20.
Holy crap, 2 points? You're taking 2
22.
points?
I would take 2 points of armor, yes.
It's insane. What was the other number?
26 points of unarmed damage. Let it be
Yes.
known, unarmed damage.
I did roll very high on these d10s. One of them was a 10.
Wow. Absolutely. Not only does it create this this sort of like sphere of vacuum in the water, but it also completely crumbles in one of Warhawk's limbs, effectively making it inoperable. It's sort of hanging limp at his side as you just slam into it with this, like you said, refrigerator of a fist.
So when he slams down into the dirt right next to me, we're close range now, and there's the big plume of completely opaque sand just kind of boils out everywhere. She's screaming in her helmet, not on the mic for anyone, "I can't leave, but I sure as hell can kill you here!"
Awesome. Okay. Very productive turn. Let's go to Maddie. Maddie, physically, you're still here, but psychically, mentally, spiritually, you are elsewhere. You can attempt to access these cores, these Geist systems in these deactivated frames. I will allow you to do either presence or system.
It's a 16 no matter what. So we're gonna I think we're gonna go with presence. This is a purely strangely spiritual procedure. And I hope to God it works, because okay, I got a 12 out of 16. So I succeed. Before I just say what that means, does that mean I basically have tapped into their cores?
Yeah, so what we see is the silhouettes of these mecha standing in this hangar, this dark hangar, and the facility is rumbling, and there's debris falling from the ceiling as the facility is beginning to melt down and explode. And we get a close-up of the face of one of these, and the eyes just go beep, 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 and they do that like classic like line of light that then becomes the two eyes staring outward as you activate these frames.
This is what I would like to do. I would like to, with my mind, pilot all 5 of them through. Is it 5 of them, or one of them is not, or
so
4 of them?
There would be
Warhawk?
there would be 4 of them because Warhawk is the 5th. Yep.
All right, that's fine. I actually don't need one, so it's okay. I'm piloting all 4 of them through the magma until they can no longer take it anymore. I am basically destroying and remolding them, and I would like their forms to encase each of my friends with new and better and even crazier armor. Especially going for Tulip and Mora, who are fucked up right now.
Okay.
if I can
molten
attempt
metal
that, I
dusters.
know what I would like to say when I do it, but but let me know what I need to do to make this happen.
So I'm just gonna say it happens. You made the roll. It's gonna take your turn to do this.
That's
but
fine.
You can do it.
I unmask myself. I uncloak myself from the void. All of a sudden, we see Paladin Vogue, who is normally of this like purple and gold thing as like the color cells blip into place, but now is basically turned. The frame has turned completely gray, and is kind of like, so again with going that Galadriel thing, sort of that spooky elven light that. That it's sort of like emanating with like this strange bioluminescence through the water, and sort of throughout the comlink, or maybe it's it's anime, so it's hard to tell if this is words that are being shared with everybody else or it's just monologuing. We hear the distorted voice of Maddie Jai say, "So simple, all of you, to think that you can just use this technology, this pure power to destroy. Never did it occur to any of you that you could use it to build." And and as he's saying this, like rocketing through or we see kind of like another fissure coming through the earth, or like these like another crack, and we think it might be like an after effect of like the explosion or the like tremors that are happening, and then sort of like these 4 different locations as they pop out, and they are just white hot, having traveled through these like magma chutes, these lava pathways. They are still dripping with the pyroplastic material, and they're sort of like completely, they're almost like they're almost just entirely hollowed out. We kind of, a lot of their bits and stuff are just like destroyed, and they come zooming towards each of you, white hot and ready to be molded. And the last bit of just like processing that they have being used to just kind of like swim towards you. At first, some of you might think it as an attack. It's almost this alien creature that is heading towards you, and it grabs. First, my priority would obviously be Tulip, obviously in this like devastated, like injured state, and Mora, who is right now just locked into battle, like a crack away from his entire hull just breaching and filling with water. He's going to Maddie is going to send the Paladin Waltz, I think it was, or the one that was basically based on his frame. He's going to send it to Mora, and everybody else is going to get the ones that was based on theirs. And they sort of come around them like a backpack, or like some kind of like just like creature that is like jumping onto their shoulders, and it molds into onto their frames. And as there's the initial like just glow of the molten metal, which is quickly being cooled by the ocean waters. And
Amazing. I'm gonna let each of you describe what it looks like as the pieces sort of affix themselves. But mechanically, what we're gonna do here is everyone, your armor points go back up to full, and you can increase 1 ability by 1.
Dang.
It's the last fight. Let's just go for it.
I'm into it.
Yeah. Incredible. Okay, so Pax is up next. So John, what does it look like as these what was it? Was it Paladin Triad? These pieces, these molten pieces affix themselves to Paladin 3s. What does it look like?
So I'm gonna ask, instead of increasing an ability port, can I just like make a random mod right now as the thing, like, instead
Fuck it.
of
Yeah, let's do it. What do you want? What do you want?
Okay, yeah.
So instead of like increasing an ability point, I imagine that this like metallic thing kind of swarms over, and when it's kind of molted itself, I don't know how this all works, but I imagine that it kind of molds itself to what it, I don't know, like what it thinks Pax needs, right, for his chassis. And I think it would be really cool if he had a fourth arm added onto his
This motherfucker is Mora.
Oh my god. Paladin
So instead of
4s,
threes-
baby.
Yeah. Instead of
Oh.
threes,
Prime.
He's now 4s.
Oh my god. Okay. Hell yeah. Okay, so all right, so we'll just real quick, I don't know if this is how it works, but we'll say mechanically for now. Basically, you get a fourth arm. Obviously, you can hold things with it, but you also get +1 to damage with, if you're holding something with that arm, you get an additional +1 damage.
So since he's like back on the ship, oh god, this like throws like everything I was about to do like out of the water, because now I want to use my fourth arm.
Chekhov's
Oh,
fourth
damn.
arm is what they call that. in
Chekhov's
literature, I
fourth
think.
arm. If you put a fourth arm on above the bar,
You have to use it.
you have to use it.
I'm not gonna lie, that was like one of the things I wanted for 3s. Was to get one more arm by the end of the
I just
show.
want one more limb.
But all right, so to be more realistic to actual Pax, even though this is very cool, I think he is still going to dock the chassis and try to pilot the ship so that it's not going to explode, since that is kind of the main objective right now. Because if everybody lives through whatever is happening down there and the ship blows up, that's kind of meaningless. So he's going to try to make sure, I don't know how many actions that will take for him to get up to the brig and move the ship, but if it only takes 1, he will go back to his chassis while he's moving. If it takes 2, then he'll stay on the bridge and I'll move next time.
Okay, cool. I'll say that, getting docked, getting onto the bridge, like that's basically your turn.
Okay.
But one interesting thing, as you get onto the bridge, there's this klaxon going off. Beep, 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 beep. And if you investigate, you see that there are reactor signatures in orbit. There are ships that have arrived. And as you sort of like click keys to try and get a beat on who they are, it's Neo-Dominion reactor signatures.
Oh, Parker, you guys are so silly. Cool. That is good to know.
Yeah, do with that information what you will. But you can get the ship started to move out of the way, and you can get back in your chassis on the next turn. All right. Tulip, what does it look like as Paladin Rain gets, I think it was Paladin Hail. What happens as Paladin Hail gets incorporated into your chassis?
Yeah. As Paladin Hail arrives and breaks apart, it starts to because Tulip is not exactly present. The Geist Tulip does not react, more or less. Still hyper focused on the now descending Warhawk, and as it starts to kick its thrusters into gear and move forward ever so slightly, these white hot armor pieces break apart from that frame of Hail and just start slamming into the Monarch wing binders, like one after the other, and making this chonky, like full on wing zero, but a little bit more like a little less put together looking, and yeah, just wing binders on wing binders kind of expanding outward. and then 2 pieces just overlay over those shoulder pauldrons and expand the missile bunk. And this is a mobility +1.
Dope.
I feel like that makes sense. And yeah, back to full armor. Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Does the tulip go? Okay.
Mm-hmm. The tulip goes.
All right. So yeah, Paladin Rain. First, at the beginning of action, I already rolled for my reactor, which is good, and I already rolled for damage, which is good. I just need to roll to see if I hit, I think. And I'm using my micro missiles since we were talking about it. Okay, 5, good. So yeah, 10 damage, specifically targeting the regenerative bit.
Okay, yeah, cool. The missiles slam home, and there's nothing left of that drone after the missiles are done with it.
Right on. And then since I'm still near, correct?
Yes, because it was pulled out of close by Zasha.
Okay, so honestly, well, Warhawk was, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Yeah, but you know what?
Oh, yeah, because of the drones. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought if both drones are still left behind.
Yeah, so the red one is still there. Yep.
Yeah, I would pump that reactor one more time.
Cool.
And go for it with the sword.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, we're now rolling a d6 for the sword or the reactor. Okay, 3. We're good. I will show you if you want me to, but that's another 10 on a d10.
I believe you.
I do have my D&D Beyond log. But
let's see the receipts, Matt. Show me those roll receipts.
But yeah, so those missiles just kind of casually pop up, not even a thought given to it. Annihilates the regenerative bit, and then reaching down for that sword starts to hit those thrusters into a high gear, and the sword starts to expand, and the Okami pumps once, not twice, but 3 times. And the sword gets ridiculous and just eats this last bit if it's dead.
Yep, it is dead. Yeah. They both had 10 hit points, so they both are completely vaporized, leaving Warhawk without his little bit friends. Okay.
And then she would just turn 180 with her with the glowing orange eyes of the Paladin staring downward towards Warhawk. And if I could, just a small moment, inside the Geist system, in that eerie, Tulip's still surrounded by these haunting memories, but she can hear herself, her shadow self. Embrace who you are, Warhawk, a soldier bred to die. And it replays through these memories. And Tulip, the real Tulip, starts to kind of go a little moist at the edge of the eyes and says, "No, we're all that soldier. Don't listen to her. You're not Warhawk. Falco, you can't die. Family." And then the images of the Paladins start to overwhelm the unsure memories of the past, the happy memories on with the Nova cluster.
Yep.
The happy memories with the mechanic kids, of course, our ridiculous antics with hedgehogs, and her many moments with each of them start to overwhelm these bad moments. And she says, family protects one another. And there's like a burst of light, and that'll be the end.
Awesome. Great. And though you cry out to Warhawk, to Falk, who this person who is your brother, for lack of a better term, just as much your family as Mora is. He doesn't respond. Himself lost in this Geist system. But you get these flashes, Tulip, very like anime style of like little Falk. It's like fallen and hurt himself, and there's little Tulip like putting a band-aid on his knee and helping him back up. These memories that exist in your mind but are too buried, too old to readily drum up. And you wonder if Falk might be experiencing these too inside the Geist system. But now Warhawk turns and slices with a wing blade at Paladin Neon. So, Zasha, please give me a mobility test if you would. Okay. You dodge out of the way, or your armor just absorbs it. And then Warhawk sort of steps back, and these sort of wings, the little fins on all of the limbs sort of slide open, and these missiles just fire out by the dozens. I'll need, let's do Neon, Vogue, and Rain. I'll need to make a system test, please. Anyone who fails is taking 6 damage from these missiles.
I have never passed a system roll before.
Well, there you go. How does it
brand
feel?
new ground. Feels great. Feels good.
Yeah, they slam into Paladin Rain's chassis.
There's a voice over the comms. In Tulip, you hear, "We are not family. We are enemies. And only one of us is walking away from this." In the canyon, the crevice, Mora, Calypso is still not reacting. You're falling. Not as quickly as you would out in the open air. You're falling through water, but still you plummet, and this river of magma that is also rising up to meet you gets closer and closer and closer as you fall. You start to get heat warnings. The optics, that cycloptic eye in the middle of Calypso's forehead, is dim. If you're going to try and kick off of Calypso and make it to the surface before you fall into the magma, I'm going to need you to make a mobility test for me. But I also, while you're doing that, need you to describe what it looks like as the remnants of Paladin Waltz slam into you and integrate into your chassis.
Okay. So I fail at letting go of the Calypso Mecha. And I think that the remnants of Waltz comes up behind Paladin Raptor and opens up in that same similar way and encloses itself over. How big is Calypso's mecha? Is it way bigger? It's a big one. I forgot the size.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 times the size of your chassis. But feel free to
Hobbit and human.
Yeah, Hobbit and human. Yeah, that's a
nice.
good.
Well, you know what? Here's the deal: is this isn't just any regular waltz. This is Paladin Vogue, doing some like super magical nonsense here. And so I think that waltz will open up and encompass both Raptor and Calypso's mecha as much as possible, not completely, but like around the shoulders of the Calypso mecha, because it doesn't really know who it's protecting. It just knows to put armor where the armor is. And so what's happening now is you have this singular object that if it weren't plummeting previously, it's heading straight for the molten earth. And is that, yeah, you're up.
Well, so that was one action. Do you want to do anything else?
Yes. At the final moment, you see as the simple armor does what it can to heal Paladin Raptor. You see 2 jet wings pop out of the armor of the waltz mecha. You see out of the bottom of this encasement holding both Raptor and Calypso's mecha, you see jets fire downwards against the drop. And you see at the last possible moment, I have to roll my reactor die at the last possible moment. You see the jet of Paladin Raptor fully transformed tear upwards out of the crevice, leaving Calypso's mecha still trapped inside Paladin Waltz to plummet into the lava.
Calypso, this massive mech, touches down into the magma correct me if I'm misunderstanding your description, Barker, but as you use these new wings and jet turbines to jet away from this.
Yes. So, yep. Mora is jetting away from from Calypso, and because Calypso is still enraveled in waltz, it's a done deal.
Right. Yep. Basically, just sinking down with this extra weight, limbs confined from these extra bits of armor, and there's probably a part of you, Mora, that hopes to hear something over the comm from Calypso, but there's just static.
Do you think I could patch in through waltz?
You could try.
Success at a systems check.
What do you say?
I left something, I don't say this, but I left something inside Calypso's mecha before. You'll notice that the melted amulet that Mora has worn around his neck since the beginning, the one that supposedly belonged to his mother, a family heirloom, half destroyed in an explosion, but seems to be perhaps just an artifact created to propel this memory, to lend some realism to Mora's faux life. And it's just a single message as the item absorbed into Calypso's mecha is deposited in front of Calypso. And the message that I say is, give this back to Mom for me.
We cut back back to the top of the crevice. Zasha, go ahead and describe what it looks like as Paladin Void slams into Neon and integrates into your chassis.
So this like half molten skeletal structure rockets its way out of this molten core through this chasm and comes hurtling at Neon inside her mech Avalanche. And when it gets close, Neon actually reaches out and grabs hold of the chassis for whatever this mech used to be, grabs this hard skeletal structure inside, and just the molten slag kind of runs up the arm of her mech, and she throws the chassis away into the chasm and like goes spinning, and sparks are flying, and it's half melted, slams into the wall. Not as though she does not need it, but as though she's so focused on this fight, she thought that it was a threat. But what does grab hold is this slick, dark, black steel, this Durasteel gauntlet that has melted and fused its way up one of her arms. And I'm making this molten module into a heavy arm, and it's going to copy the piston fist that you sent me 1,000,000 years ago.
Yeah, awesome.
So she flexes the fingers on this non-grapple arm and breaks away some of the Durasteel, but there's still this big club hunk of metal kind of connected and infused with all of the mechanics underneath.
Very cool. And feel free to take your turn.
Sure. So if I see the commander coming up with like the turbo jets and so fast, that's a huge load off. So all I'm going to do is attack twice at Warhawk. And has he moved at all, or is he still close to me?
He's still close to you.
Okay. Well, you can't get everything you want. But
not all of your dreams can be
yeah.
realities.
So I'm just going to take both turns to attack, and I'll roll my reactor with that. One of them is a success, and one of them is a 2, which we all know at home is a crit for me in my chassis. So the first attack is a 14 damage, and I'm good on my reactor die. And then the second attack, which was the crit, is 23 points of damage. The old 1-2 like grappler arm whips out like a whip and kind of smashes in from one side so that she hammers in with this gauntlet on the other.
Killer. As you do this, pieces of armor flying off of Warhawk, and Warhawk reaches out for help that isn't there. He no longer has his drones that repair him and attack his enemies. And if he's calling for help from Calypso, he receives nothing in return. And in fact, he probably sees that Calypso's mech, her reactor signature, is no longer active. Warhawk drops to one knee and grabs onto this boulder for balance. Over the comm to you, Zasha, this sort of mecha head looks up at you, the eyes flickering as the power begins to die. Through static, you hear, "Finish it."
It's been a long day. And Zasha has this moment where she's looking through the slit in her visor inside this mech at this display and hearing it kind of echo around. And she remembers opening fire inside and holding this man by his throat and killing him less than an hour ago. The fear that's been bubbling up from everything that's happened with Mora and seeing the pieces of mech flayed off moments ago from Tulip. I think that she does raise both arms high up. One of them snaps back into place with the grappler attachment. The other is coated in this black Durasteel. And she screams and slams both fists down. But I'm going to roll for it to see if she can go through with it. This will be the last moment, that 50-50 nature, where she doesn't know if she's lost everything that's made her a teenaged girl afraid for her parents' life or not. She brings both fists down onto Warhawk.
There's a crash of steel as this mecha crumbles beneath the immense weight and power of Paladin Neon. And there's a flicker as the power inside dies out. Mora and Tulip, both of you feel this strange tinge through the Geist system. And there's not a good way to describe it. And so the best way I can do it is it's like when one of your headphones just suddenly goes out and you can still hear the music, but all of a sudden it's no longer in stereo. And there's this moment where there's this severed connection through the Geist system.
I would say the trauma of the feeling would snap her out of the Geist state immediately.
And Maddie and Tulip, both of you, before you were pulled out of the Geist system, Tulip, there's that scene again of that empty grave that you saw last time. And Falk standing over it, and he looks so much like Mora. And he's looking in the grave. And he looks up at you, Tulip. And you lock eyes. And you see your eyes. He has your eyes. That's what's different between him and Mora. He has Nan's eyes.
Oh, boy.
And he says, I guess this one's mine. And then you get pulled out of the Geist system.
Wow. Yeah. She gets yanked forward as she's pulled out of the system, almost pulling the jack cord completely out of her head. And the only reason she doesn't hit the monitor, her restraints keep her from doing so. And she pulls at the extent of them, almost towards Warhawk, or what was Warhawk, reaching out physically inside the cockpit in a cold sweat, and then snaps into understanding, hits that throttle, and even though she knows better, puts all of the power of this new thruster system into going down to Warhawk's mech. She's got that, as opposed to like screaming something and crying, she's saying nothing, and just a couple tears are floating in the atmosphere as she comes down from the Geist's kind of horrible effect.
The camera cuts back into Zasha's mech inside this helmet. The tears like fall weirdly because we're underwater, but it's so deep and the pressure is building and pushing them into her eyes. And she is screaming with her head back and leaned back against the seat. And the mech like all the systems are powered up. She's still full throttle, like pressing into the dirt. The fists are burying.
Aboard the Okami, Pax, you see these reactor signatures, and there's a hail that comes through. One of the ships is sending a tight beam to the Okami. Do you want to answer the call?
Yes.
You flick the switch, and on the hollow screen, you see the face of your uncle. And he says, "We came as soon as we could, Prince, but we're here. How can we help?"
And Pax would kind of look at pretty much most of the combatants have been defeated at this point and say, well, it's not really much here, as but it will be good to have an escort out of here.
An escort we can do. We're reading a lot of tectonic activity on that planet. You might want to get clear as soon as possible. There's going to be a hell of an eruption.
That is the plan.
Right. We'll hold in orbit then. We'll see you up here. And the comms click off.
I am glad I answered that comm.
Go ahead.
Cool. So with that being said, yeah, I just want to kind of hail the rest of my squad. And just say, all right, the Okami is secure. If everybody can make it, I think we should probably get out of here pronto. And I'll just open up all the hatches for them to slide their chassis in. But I also kind of want to, I know our ship has some form of mega laser. I just want to, before we leave, point it at the facility so that even if the volcano doesn't swallow everything, I just want to really make sure nobody can ever use this thing again.
With the onboard weapons of the Okami, you'd have to fire for quite a long time to break through the crust. But if you get up to where the your uncle's ships are, you could probably bombard it from orbit and turn it to glass if you wanted to.
With that being said, then I will send a message to my uncle to, I don't know what ships they brought, but tell them to get ready for an orbital bombardment as well. It's just glass this whole planet.
And he's like, can do. And they will start charging up the orbital weapons on their ships. What's everyone else doing as you sort of gather again for the first time after this battle in your new souped up mecha?
I like to wait for everybody else to get onto the Okami before I say what I do, if everyone's okay with that.
Yeah.
I think Mora would be the first. Mora gets onto the Okami while transforming back into a mecha that's just almost in scraps. If it weren't for the waltz, it would be completely destroyed. It's patchwork material all around it, this kind of almost bronzed finished metal on top of placid black, and there's a hedgehog taking off its spacesuit because we have a barrier between us and the water, right? Because the Okami is still down in the water.
Correct.
Okay, so great. So yep, I move through the magical force field, the scientific force field that we get in, and park my mecha, and just sit there in silence for a little, and others will arrive.
So actually, as you transform and you head back toward the Okami, I'm going to need you to give me a mobility test, if you would, please.
Understood. And also, Matt, I'm going to need you to give me a cutscene of inside Calypso's cockpit at some point.
We'll see.
Next season.
Next season. Calypso side story. That would be a thing, though. The Gundam's always doing like.
Comes
It's
back
this.
with another eye patch.
Yeah. Oh man, double eye patch.
I fail mobility.
As you
Just let me have it.
transform and kind of fly back towards the Okami, a fist comes up out of the crevice and grabs the end of your engine, of your like tail, and this limb is like skeletal with molten slag like dripping off of it as it's like cooling in the water, and another arm comes up and this massive mech half melted with pieces of Paladin waltz armoring it comes clambering out of the crevice. This strange sort of like monstrous metal thing. And I need everyone to give me a presence test, please.
I'm good at those.
Okay. All right, everyone succeeded so far. Let's see how John does. Okay. A face appears on all of your HUDs over the comm. It's Calypso. This face, familiar yet unfamiliar to you. Sweat pouring down her face, blood running from cuts and injuries. She's breathing hard as she says, "You don't deserve the gifts that have been given to you. Give them back to me." And let's roll initiative.
Is this like Ganon instead of Ganondorf?
Is Calamity
This is like Calamity.
This is Calamity Calypso.
Molten Mecha?
Yeah.
This wasn't an mission manual, bro. You're faking all of this. I know it.
Are you hold up?
You're
Are you
fudging the
making
whole
this
thing.
up? Are you making this up?
Can I are we doing initiative like versus mobility kind of thing?
Yeah, mobility or system, whichever is higher.
Okay. I fail, but can I describe that fail right now?
Yeah.
Because I was descending, towards Warhawk. So the Mecha, the Paladin rain is like full force blasting through the distance. And as it approaches the waters, similarly, it creates this massive crater just from the force of it arriving. But it lands right beside this broken down Warhawk frame, spreads its wings to full breadth, and seems to lean down the Mecha and just embrace Warhawk's frame in like a hug. And that well-held back emotion, that couple of droplets in her eyes, goes full flood, and she just weeps with her comms off. Does not hear the warning and is not moving.
Okay, cool. So, here's what initiative looks like. Oh, did you? I just missed it. Sorry, Barker. I'm the worst. Okay, so that'll be
Calamity Calypso.
and then okay. So Calypso goes first, then Vogue, Neon, threes, then Calypso again, then Raptor and Rain. The only mecha that is not near to Calypso right now is threes, because threes is docked on the ship. So threes, you are far from Calypso, and you're actually situated behind her in the Okami. So you actually just see the back of this thing come up out of the crevice, like from the bridge. As you're saying, like, hey, we got this mopped up. If you just want to get ready to... Holy shit! And you see this thing come out of the canyon. Everyone else is in front of Calypso and near. So the first thing I'm going to need from everybody is... Where is the stat block? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, and it's going to be +3 again for all rolls with this. Let's see. Everybody, except for threes, give me a mobility test, please. Failure is 8 damage as these molten fists just come sweeping across, batting Mecha aside. So what I actually imagine, because you failed, Tulip, is you're sitting there like cradling the broken form of Warhawk, and this fist just sweeps you away as it comes clambering out of the crevice. The hyper matter particle cannon that Calypso tried to fire upon the Okami is apparently still operative. As she levels it, it's kind of become part of the arm of this thing. Raptor, give me a power test, please. Okay, you managed to withstand the incredible blast of energy from this cannon. And that brings us to Vogue.
Well, this certainly throws a wrench into things. I suppose she's near, so what I'm going to have to do is move. And so, but at this point, Paladin Vogue, because we haven't seen him for a bit, he's like I said, he came out of this. He's still in the Geist system somewhere. He's the only person probably remaining there. And like I said, his chassis has gone from this purple and gold motif to now it's just entirely sort of ghostly, luminescent gray. And as we kind of look closer, he's kind of like phasing in and out. He's just sort of like there's part of you, people who might see it might think, well, it might be part of the cloak, it might be part of, but there's something almost just like there is the sense of like spectralness about him, about the suit. Yeah, I guess responding as quickly as it can, it jumps into action, moving automatically and moving like a phantom through the water. And just, I think the best it can do with the two actions that he has is to move and then use his quick light melee weapon. So he extends his hand and flexes it, and the scratch gauntlet comes online, and basically the hand is replaced with just a large metallic claw that also has I forget. There's one that's quick, and then there's also the load steel.
The Lodium property.
Lodium quality property on it, which I think is just like if he rolls a certain number, something will happen. But
if you roll a natural 1 on an attack roll, you gain 1 armor point.
Oh, okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and so we're gonna roll. So the first attack is gonna miss. And so because it's quick, he gets 2 attacks, correct? On the
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
And the second attack, 7 out of 10, is going to hit. And that's going to be D4 damage because it's quick. It's considered like an unarmed strike, and that's going to be 3 damage.
Got it. It doesn't do much, but you hew off a piece of this molten metal that is encasing this skeletal-looking mech.
And and just as like flavor, maybe setting up, possibly if I get a turn that comes around again after these people that do 50,000 tons of damage, allow me to. There is this like strange phasing as like the claw like just sinks into the metal, just kind of almost like grasping Calypso, kind of saying and there is and I would think that in Calypso's like cockpit there's like one little like boop boop little red light that's always kind of going off, that's just like now kind of going gray just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it.
Cool. All right, that brings us to Neon. You're up.
So, Avalanche, this giant boxy mech, kind of squats down, and I see this thing crawling out nearby, sweeping its massive arms. And from my mech's legs, little anchors fire out and attach to the boulder that we're standing by, that Warhawk positioned himself on a moment ago. Neon puts her feet on the boulder and pulls the anchors tight, and then maxes out the thrust on the thrusters on her mecha's back. And just before it starts to overheat and cause damage, weighs the anchors. She's going to use Charging Strike as a move action, immediately move to a near enemy and make a melee attack against them. And she is going to be using Warhawk as the weapon for this swing.
Oh,
dragging
geez.
along this massive
After Warhawk was knocked out of my hand, I guess. Yeah. Wow.
Well, we have other things to worry about at this point, right? We'll say that it's a portion of Warhawk. How about that? Just like a leg. Just through the water and swings and connects with this hit, and the leg just shatters to pieces. And then she follows it up with a large haymaker and slamming this gauntleted fist into it as well. Both of those were successful rolls for a total of 17 points of damage. I have 1 armor point, meaning I cannot do reckless attacks, and my reactor dies down to a D4, so I'm not risking any craziness in case my mech shuts off and I get killed.
Okay. All right.
But she is kind of trying to position herself immediately in front of this thing, knowing that Vogue has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. I do not. I am a sack of hit points and armor. So I'm trying to just stand in the way. She has to face me.
Perfect.
Come on, you bitch.
Get away from her. Threes, you are up.
Okay.
And I'll also, sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but I will assume that you were already getting back in your mech before your turn started, so you don't need to waste one of your actions getting into your mech.
So, okay. I have a really dumb idea, and if you would allow it, I think what I want to try to do, seeing this giant mech creature, is, since I'm on the Okami, is I want to hook up my Buster Rifle directly to the Okami's like power core to like almost like direct like the Okami's like mega beams through like a more focused like thing through my Buster Rifle. That way it doesn't like blow a bunch of
I think
stuff, but like
there's already an interface there for that with the long claw, so you can just like There's another USB port right there. Just go ahead and plug on in.
All right, cool. And what I would like to do is use my rifle and all the aiming assist mechanisms within my cockpit and lower the bridge and shoot for, since she clearly doesn't see me behind her, shoot for the cockpit and just shoot a hole clean through it.
Okay, let's do it. I'll say juicing your rifle with the Okami's reactor will give you an additional damage die on top of what you've already got.
Okay.
Which is like 15 damage dice, so.
Only have 4. Okay. And did you say the 4th arm gives me another extra damage, or
gives you
damage
+1 to the damage, yeah.
die? Okay. Is my and okay. Trying to find my actual dice. I just like dumped all my dice out and now I can't find anything.
I made the mistake of letting my daughter play with my dice, which means that I can't find about half of them, and they're likely in the couch cushions right now. So if I need any dice, I know where to find them.
Okay, so that's 2. You said +1. So I should probably put this down. Oh god. So that is going to be wait, hold on, I think I messed this up. I think I confused the extra damage with extra
You're like,
dice.
it can't be that much.
Yeah. So hold on. It's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. So 34 points of damage.
I have a new favorite moment in this campaign, and it's listening to John count his damage.
I know.
I love it.
terrible with math.
No, I love it because you're like 30, 31, 32, 33. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, where does it stop? You don't hit the cockpit, but you punch a hole through this thing immediately to the left of the cockpit. The beam hits the back of this massive mech and bores a molten hole through it. Just the beam then fires upwards out of the sea through the atmosphere, and in orbit your uncle sees a thin line of energy escaping the planet's orbit and just dissipating into space. And he goes, "Ready our weapons. We might need them earlier than we thought." All right. Very cool. Okay, so that was 3s. It is now Calypso's turn again. Zasha, please give me I believe it's power. Let me confirm with the stat block. Yes, it is power.
Just don't give me systems and we're good. 11 out of 19. That's a pass.
Okay. The fist comes down, but you manage to catch it and divert it or just dodge out of the way. But the second one comes in. Let's go for... This one's going to be mobility.
That is an 8 out of 18, also a pass.
You manage to dodge out of the way. The unstable reactor of this thing that has been powered up by Raptor previously is glowing red hot inside of this thing. You see that the sort of like rib cage, like casing around this reactor is like melting around it. That's how hot it is. It's glowing, thrumming with energy. It dissipates some of that heat. I need everyone who's within near, which I think is everyone except threes, to please give me a presence test. Uh-oh, okay. So, Vogue, that's going to be 7 damage.
Okay.
You thought I was going to say 17, didn't you? Because I paused.
Well, no, it's you know what? This might be the first time I've been damaged this entire campaign, so
Yes,
I
did it.
This hurts. It's you know.
Maddie Jai's like, what the hell was that?
No one makes me bleed my own blood.
Is this what pain feels like? This is terrible.
this
I've
is
been doing
awful.
this to people.
To be fair, he has it. So.
All right. That brings us to Raptor.
Oh, not again, he thinks, as he sees the Calamity Calypso crawling out of the crevice. It's going to stick. And he is going to say, all right, I need you to give me more than you've ever given me, he says to Paladin Raptor. Zzz, the ion turbine begins spinning up, and the vehicle mode activates. Actually, that would happen first, because I did describe him as leaving vehicle mode. It gets back into that F-22 Raptor sort of look. I'm going to roll my reactor die for that. Okay, so I'm good. I'm good to go. The ion turbine begins spinning, and imagining this mecha is distant from me or far.
The one that grabbed you
Calamity Calypso, yeah,
is near to you.
Okay, near. Okay, that's okay. Awesome. Even though, okay, great. So, in that case, I'm going to.
Calypso's that close to the Okami?
Wait, because so she grabbed you as you were flying past. She stopped you from getting to the Okami.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I got confused because I described the whole thing about going into the force field.
I know, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was like, oh, don't go back in the Okami. There's still the boss fight. Like, I was it's gonna grab you. Yeah. Yep.
It's really gonna grab you. No, really. And so I'm not gonna use the ion turbine yet. We'll see. And Mora is going to fire off all of the missiles off of the wings. He's going to say F1 box 2, and he's going to fire a missile barrage. I don't it's an attack action. I need a test power. Oh crap, I fail. I never fail that. Oops. Okay, anyone want to give me a Zeta point? What? Those aren't coming out until Mecha Hack Mission Manual. Okay.
I mean, if we have even one.
All right. So how I imagine it is the
reactor roll. Is that what you said? Oh,
no, not reactor. But what's happening is that these missiles, this barrage of missiles, they're exploding because this thing is too hot. Calypso's mecha is it's burning too hot, and they're going off in the midst of all the this kind of like shrapnel of magma just pooling around it, and Mora screams more, and fires again. I'm gonna roll my reactor die to do that. Good God. Okay, so that is another failure. The reactor die is good, but after seeing that the missiles are not going to work, Raptor ignites this pink beam sword and moves one range band away back to far distance from Calypso.
Cool. the missiles do in fact hit. They just deal no damage. They just sort of just pop all over the molten hull of this thing, but do no discernible damage. Okay, that was Raptor. Rain, you're up.
So the way I visualized it is when this massive rending claw came and slapped the completely unprepared and emotionally focused Tulip Cho, basically immobile while being struck, it really, really did a number on her, knocking her completely unconscious as the two mechas are rolling, almost skipping like a stone across the water, being launched off that boulder and are now descending into the water when she snaps to. But because her Paladin is active, automatic systems were kicking in to adjust her altitude and get her back to surface, but they wouldn't have done the same for Warhawk. So when she comes back online, Warhawk's signature is gone. And the mech just does like a 360 spin in the water slowly, and there's nothing there. Then she, the sword that's in her hand, she lets go, and it snaps back into the hip holster by the cord, like an elastic retrieval, and the rain emerges from the water in a burst of brilliant light, wings fully outstretched, as Tulip now is reactive in the Geist system, and you feel it, Maddie Jai, as it bursts in, but it's different. It's not like it was before. Instead of being the milky gray, her eyes burst with vibrant, chromatic, multi-tone color, and her signature in this, dimension we share is different, brilliant. The rain smashes forward at full speed, or not at full speed. I'm not going to do that. Since I disarmed from the long fang, it just emerges from the water at far range. You just see this angelic thing emerge with a hellish look on its eyes, and you see the electrochemical arc rifle in all of its glory, canister attached to the bottom, and she just finds this newly emerged Calypso and screams across the comms, "This never would have happened to him if not for you." And instead of, I'll wait till it hits or doesn't hit before I say anything else. Okay, so I rolled a 10. My power is 16. We good. And yeah, misses. I gotta roll a reactor die too, so let's do that. All right, so I do not fuck up my react. Oh, I do. No, I did again. Okay, cool. I'll still fire though. So I'm dropped down to a 4. That's pretty serious. So the visual of this is when it shoots, I think Tulip's accessing the same system that was drawing from that battery energy that kept getting renewed from the Okami, and the gun can handle it, but the frame cannot handle this use of it, and the arms start to get hot, and parts of the chest and abdomen are starting to like flake off, the metal like bursting away in sparks. And yeah, I'll do 6 damage, and you miss a turn, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so okay, on a success, what this looks like is, that iconic red electrical arc just shoots across, but it is thicker than it ever has been before. Calamity Calypso sized. And immediately which is never done with a single target, arcs into those several different electrical arcs like it did to the squad of fighters, but it's hitting different points of this monster, you know, just this lightning blast from across. And it's, if nothing else, it's a hella spectacle.
Yeah,
And
chains through the limbs of Calypso, and she's gonna lose this turn. She was up next, but she loses that turn, so she'll still get her in between turn between the two initiative groups, but she misses this immediate turn. So we go right back up to the top of the initiative with Vogue.
Nice.
So Vogue, you get to go before Calypso does.
Sweet. So we only know this character by the name of Calypso, that there is no other, right? I wasn't sure if there was a differentiation between Calypso and the pilot. The phantom frame of the chassis that is, or maybe was, Paladin Vogue, kind of, it still has that scratch gauntlet claw like embedded within the frame, and it almost doesn't look like it's doing like it's penetrated like physically. It's almost like it's kind of phasing through. I mean, it is like fucking up the systems, but it almost looks like it's like kind of like distorting like the reality around like where the claws sink in, and sort of within Calypso's like cockpit, that a few more of these lights go gray, and that distorted voice of Maddie Jai sort of chimes into her system, saying, Calypso, you say that we are not worthy of these gifts, these talents we possess. You say that you want them so dearly. Be careful what you wish for. And one of the like nails from the scratch gauntlet kind of penetrates into the cockpit and kind of like touches her head. And what I'd like to do is just try to give her all of the Geist system. I just want to like channel. I just want to just, if she wants it so bad, if she like really thinks she can handle it, I just want her to like just be inundated with the noise, the phantoms, the raw information of the Geist system, and just feed it directly into her head.
Let's do it. Let's call that a presence test. +3.
Be careful what you wish for.
And the B, so I got a 4, so +3 is 7, so it's a success.
You find yourself again standing in that like stark white landscape with no discernible horizon, no floor, no ceiling, no walls. And she's there.
And Maddie Jai is there in his he's kind of normal in the in this space, or normal from what we're used to. He's got the he's kind of got his tousle hair, as opposed to the tactical romper he was wearing earlier. It's his usual sort of Paladins kind of like jumpsuit that they would have to wear in like the cockpits or whatever in training, but that he like fashionably like cut up and like made a romper as well. But like it's like with the Paladin and the Paladin logos and stuff like that on. And he's standing there kind of serene and observant of who have, you know, this crazy stark likeness of Saxifrage before him.
And she kind of takes a few steps and is looking around, and as she moves, you see that there's this strange, like, mirrored image of her that is overlaid with her, but when she moves, there's like a blur to it, almost like the holographic saxifrage is there too in some semblance. And she says, "How did you do this?"
I don't know. But I will say that I did it. And we're here. And that's bad news for you.
She begins to sink, disappearing into this white nothingness. And at first she kind of, what is this? And then as she starts to sink lower and lower, you see panic start to build in her eyes.
You see, Calypso, everything around you is echo and potential, reflection, and it's there because of us, not despite us. It's what dreams are made of, Calypso. And he sort of walks as she's sort of sinking in his round body, and kind of hopping sort of joyfully towards the towards her. Yes, I realized that when I achieved synchronization, I didn't find some system, some strange force that I could use. I found myself. I found a mirror. Calypso, I really hope when you shine that mirror up to yourself that you like what you see. And he just begins to kind of like backpedal away, and kind of observes what's happening and tries to keep his wits about him.
As she sinks lower and lower into the depths of the Geist system, she kind of cranes her neck up, almost like she's trying to not drown in it. And though there's panic in her eyes, her face remains stoic and placid. And she says, "When I look in the mirror, I see the face of a mother who left me behind." And she disappears. The mech, Calypso, is still sort of like in this sort of like static chain lightning, gripping the joints, causing the mech to seize and convulse, not able to act. Neon, you are up.
Well, I am something of a hammer, so I suppose I'll just keep hammering away. I think that if we cripple this mech and get back into atmosphere without losing anyone, we can take care of it from there. But until I know this thing can't move anymore and chase after us, I'm just going to keep hammering away at it. Both succeed. I rolled an 18, thought I missed, but I have a 19 power. So yeah. $15 total damage for both attacks.
What does that look like? You just punching, just hammering into
I'm
it?
just imagining at this point, I keep picturing a skeleton with molten stuff kind of cooling, hanging off of it. I'm imagining that since it stopped moving, I've raced up to its head region. It's all tilted with this one eye that's been covered in half melted slag. And I'm slamming in it where I believe its sensors would be, just hammering with both arms, trying to cripple this mech while we have the chance.
I think you actually, on that last punch, you come back with the optic sensor out of this thing's head. You just sort of rip it free, cables and sparks emitting as you do so. Threes, you're up.
So is there a noticeable difference after Aaron's thing?
Yeah, the mecha itself is still under the effects of Tulip's what is it? The electrochemical arc rifle? Is that what it is? The electrochemical arc cannon or arc rifle? Yeah, okay, cool. So it's still sort of like caught up in that, but you definitely notice like a shift. It sort of like goes slack as Maddie interfaces with it.
Okay. And what about Raptor? Where is he at? All right, I'm just gonna stay on the ship, I think, and try to wait it out and try to maintain, like, have the ship continuously sail up and hope everybody makes it back to the ship. Because if this thing is not moving, I'm just gonna glass it from the atmosphere.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, you take the Okami up, and it breaches the surface of the water and goes into open air, heading into the upper atmosphere. Raptor, you're up.
Raptor just finishes transforming back into his mecha, now holding a beam sword in his hand. Calypso is stuck, right? Almost like being held in place by something. Raptor is going to slowly approach. And then, approach. And then attempt to, after a brief examination, get behind the mech, get behind Calypso's mech, and just run a system diagnostics check to see what the inside is like.
Go ahead and give me a system test.
That is a success.
What you can tell is that the mecha is still active. Reactor levels are dangerously high. Meltdown is imminent. The reactor is... if the mech doesn't melt, the reactor is going to go. Probably both. But the oddest thing is that the life signs, though faint, are there, but there is zero brain activity.
Guy, Vogue, I think you killed her.
No response.
Yep.
He's, by the way, latched on to his claw is latched onto her as well. So that's something you're seeing as well, yeah.
Mora just kind of pilots the Raptor slightly away again. I'll roll the reactor die because I'm moving twice, basically. But okay, downgrade. Oh nope, because I can take that armor that I got. because I am one with the machine. A fact that I never forget. I don't even trust anyone who forgets that. And and that's that. Mora just kind of stands back and prepares and watches what Paladin Vogue is doing.
Rain, you're up. Oh, you're muted, Matt.
Sorry. Yeah, Tulip. Yeah, again with those rainbow kind of oil slick eyes. Just another one, basically. I built it so that it only has 3 shots for some reason, but even though no one ever asked me to. So the second shot shoots across. Let's see if it does. Okay. This one actually doesn't work. And let's look. And my reactor deactivates.
Oh.
So actually, Matt, if you don't mind, because I'm just doing the same thing I was doing last turn, describe how this fades away.
So you fire off this shot and your reactor sort of like goes down as you fire it. And so this beam of energy, it kind of like, it slices through the arm of Calypso, hewing it from the body. And this mech starts to like fall backwards back into the crevice. And then the beam cuts upward and again through the atmosphere. And the Paladin rain plummets back into the sea, sizzling as it does so from this overheated reactor. All of you see the energy signature of Paladin rain go down, and Tulip, if you were still in the Geist system, which I don't believe you were, you would instantly be yanked out of it.
Yeah, I got knocked out of it at the very end there, right?
That's right. Yep. Mm-hmm. So you're just sort of like in the cockpit as the mecha just sort of into the ocean and kind of falling backwards, sinking into the bottom of the sea. And Raptor, you actually see this as you're kind of flying in this circular pattern around Calypso. The Calypso mecha kind of like is grabbing onto the ground as it's falling backwards into this crevice, and Neon and Vogue would probably see this best, of like this, it's almost like a strange sort of like animalistic need to survive. This mech is still just like kind of clawing its way up whatever vestige of saxifrage is left in the Geist system that is quickly going offline inside this melting, overreacting chassis. It topples back into the crevice, and Vogue, you're able to kind of disentangle yourself from it if you wish, if you don't want to fall into the crevice.
I don't wish.
You stick with it?
Yeah, I have a plan.
Okay. The Calypso chassis topples backwards with Paladin Vogue still attached, still interfaced with the system.
Would it be possible for me to try to keep hold of it and keep my feet planted onto the ground, so I'm sort of almost like it's falling, and I'm lifting it up as best as I can, trying to keep it aloft from falling in?
On your own? No, but Neon is right there.
If Maddie starts sliding into volcanic doom, I will do my best to hold up this skeletal thing that I've been beating the shit out of.
So there's like yeah, there's this moment where you're like, you're trying to, and you keep it for a second, Maddie, but then the weight of it is kind of pulling you down and you start sliding into the crevice. And then another arm sort of grabs onto this charred chassis, and you look over and you see the refrigerator. You see Paladin Neon there also holding this weight up with you, keeping it aloft.
And it's doing that, like as the mech's straining to hold it.
Yeah. So if could we possibly go into the Geist system real quick?
Yeah, you find yourself there in a honestly, you have mastery over it at this point. It's a scene of your choosing.
Okay. So I think a couple of things are happening right now. I think there's obviously this strain on on Paladin Vogue's chassis, which has never been built for power. Has always been built for style and other functions and utility. It's kind of gripping on with this phantom claw onto Saxifrage. Is kind of becoming a little bit more stable as it's now kind of more doing physical damage as it's just trying to hold on. So that's what we see outside. And inside, I think that Maddie kind of just continues to look at this sinking, kind of like, it's almost like the way I'm imagining it is almost like it's almost like this elastic, like the floor has almost become elastic as she's kind of like, the weight of her is sort of sinking her into the surface of this Geist system plane. And he's kind of looking at it sort of, there is this shadow of malice on his face, of joyous malice on his face as he's watching this person sink. There's part of him that sees the figure of Saxifrage herself, his Saxifrage, who he always resented and always sort of pinned as one of his captors, and a person who set him on a path of war that he never chose for himself, whatever her reasons might have been. And he can't really distinguish those for a second. And then sort of in the flicker of his like periphery, he sees Lucas, his brother, off to the side, just like outside of the Geist system. And then off to the other side of his periphery, he sees like a fragment, like almost like a wavering fragment of Warhawk, of Falco. And he says, will it always be the same? The cycle of death, retribution, seeing our enemies driven before us and killed, only for their children to exact their own justice on our sins against them and their fathers and their mothers. Will we always just be restless until we find that next enemy? Saxifrage, I told you you would never change me. I meant it. The cycle ends here. And he goes down into that sinking pit, and he tries to lift Saxifrage or Calypso out of the sinking Geist system. Would he be successful of getting her out of there?
You
reaching a hand down.
You reach down and you grab her arm and you heave upward. She rises a little, but there's this resistance. The Geist system has its hold on her. And as you feel yourself starting to get pulled into it, much like just happened with the Mecha, this crevice, another hand reaches and grabs, and another, and another, and another. It's not just Maddie. It's Sasha. It's Pax. It's Mora. It's Tulip. Are they actually here in the Geist system, or are there pieces of them that you've brought with you? Like Lucas. You don't know. But all of them lend their strength, and you heave upwards. And you pull Calypso out of the depths. She comes up gasping for air like you've just pulled her out of water. She looks at you and says, "Why?"
Because I'm not better than you. I'm not this world is filled with hatred and violence and spite to our enemies, for our neighbors. And though I am not good enough to be free of that, maybe if I pull you out of this, if I do this one stupid thing, maybe one day I will be good enough. Maybe one day we'll all be better.
I'm going to fast track things a little bit here because we're getting into the almost the third hour of our game here. But outside of the Geist system, you haul this wreckage, or at least the vital pieces of it, out of this crevice. All of you retrieve Paladin rain from the bottom of the ocean. And we get a shot of the Okami firing away from the surface of this world as the volcano erupts behind it. There's this massive explosion. The world itself being torn up by this eruption of apocalyptic magnitude. I want each of you here to leave us not with a final shot, but a penultimate one. Maybe you're sitting in your cockpit alone. Maybe you're on the bridge of the Okami. Maybe you're taking the injured and exhausted Calypso to the brig of the Okami. Whatever you're doing, describe it here ahead of our finale in 2 weeks. We'll start with Pax.
So Pax would be standing with whatever the entryway is to whatever ship his uncle came in on, where the Okami and his ships are kind of docked together, and there would probably be a bunch of other people there, and they would all salute as he comes in, which he would awkwardly tell them he's they'll need to salute him, but they probably wouldn't drop their guard down. And he would clasp hands with his uncle, and after they exchange greetings, he would just tell him, "We have a lot to discuss. Doesn't seem like things are getting any better." And that is where I would conclude that, I guess.
Zasha.
I'm imagining Zasha is in Avalanche, docked in the Okami as we're peeling away. It's the last little orbital bombardments happen before the ships exit atmosphere. She's still in it for several long minutes, and she's taken her helmet off and has it sitting in her lap, and there are little droplets of tears from the screaming and the stress inside the helmet on the faceplate that she stares out of, and she moves it back and forth, and there are these moments where she can't tell if it's tears or blood. She can't tell if she's hearing the screams of people that she's hurt or her own. Inside this soundless cockpit is the only place she knows where she can kind of sort through these feelings and figure out if or by how much she has become a monster in all things that she's done so far. From the very first moment, that first episode where she saw the pilot floating in space after his mecha was destroyed by her, to today, and how far she feels that she's fallen and how little of her is left. And she sits as the camera kind of pans through the panels and out the small portholes in this. She sits inside this protective shell, hoping that what hurts on the outside will stay out there for just a little while longer, because she hurts so much inside.
Mora.
The shot to Mora is brief. The mecha in fighter jet form is sitting, hovering in space, overlooking the imploding world and the Okami from far above. And Mora's gaze drifts to the stars, the area specifically towards the Governor Janice's location at Nova Locus. And he flips a switch. The lights go dark in the cockpit, and he just relaxes his head back against the seat and closes his eyes.
Maddie.
I have a very strong instinct I've had a very strong instinct for a while how this would this session would end sort of midway through during the battle, or a way it could end, and I feel very strongly about it now, and it might step on Tulip's toes. So if it does, Matt, let me know. But I think there's a moment when the Okami is lifting out and people are getting into their separate little chambers with their chassis inside the Okami, that there's a realization that that Maddie, who should be pulling along the heap, or what is the remains, or the pulling along Calypso, the brig and all that, that there's a moment where you look behind and he's not there. And maybe somebody does a quick systems check, and to for their sensors, and looks out and sees that he is cloaked, but you get his because of some finagling, you're able to get his like heat signature or something like that. Almost as the planet is being bombarded and falling apart. And he's got like a pretty like hefty scrap of the Calypso frame in his hand, and you see that he is kind of approaching or near what is left of Warhawk's frame. And in the midst of the bombardment, maybe somebody does some kind of scan to see what happens. And all we're left with is an empty repair nanite canister. And everything else is gone. Warhawk, Calypso, and me.
Tulip.
Tulip, knocked out by the full force of the Geist system and her reactor simultaneously rejecting her consciousness and knocking her back into the water. Wings kind of bowed forward. The last we saw of Tulip was descending as dead weight to the bottom of the ocean. She wakes up in the infirmary. She's got that like anime amount of bandages, like one across the the forehead, a couple here, and like, and she has a crutch from being banged around. And she starts to limp around. She starts to limp her way across the hall. But in doing so, realizes who was laying in the bed next to her. I think we saved Calypso, right?
I took her away.
Oh, okay. I thought that was Warhawk. All right.
I took both away.
Amazing. Okay. So yeah, she would start to, I guess that simplifies my scene, because she would start to walk with that crutch in hand through the cockpit and like wince a half smile at everybody. And then the first door she would stop at as a conscious person, without knowing the news, would be the one she shares with Maddie Jai as bunkmates. The door hatch opens, fade to black.
And that is the perfect place to leave this session. So it's a big one. It's a heavy one. But we've got one more session on the docket here. There likely won't be any combat or high action, but it will give all of us a chance to play these characters out to a certain extent and put a little cap on this campaign, which has meant a lot to me and I know that it's meant quite a bit to you guys as well. So that's where we're gonna leave it for tonight. No credit scenes tonight. I think we're gonna leave it on that shot. I think that's pretty perfect. But please do tune in 2 weeks where we finish this campaign off. Yeah, that's crazy. Thanks everyone. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next time.